You know what I mean? Like that's where the ship thing, like a lot of guys do ships and like, whatever, it's clean jokes, it's an old audience. Like, we'll find a way to make it work for you and find your voice on that
Yeah.
in front of that audience to where you're comfortable talking about the things you want to talk about. Because if they can connect with you as a person, they'll appreciate where the humor's coming from and your point of view. They'll get it.
Greetings, everyone. Come on in and have a seat up front for the Funny Muscle Podcast. If you're here, then you're looking to learn how to create laughs like a pro. So please help me welcome to the stage your co-host to help you do that, economics professor and open micer Chris Stifler and comedian turned author Mike Lucas.
My oldest moved in with me a long time, about a year and a half, 2 years ago. 2 years ago, she goes to college out in LA. She moved in with me, and she's been there for a while. And this is back when the world was normal, and I was traveling all the time. And my friends are like, aren't you worried about traveling all the time? You know, your daughter's home, she's like 18, 19 years old. I'm like, no, I am not. I'm not. She's the most well-behaved daughter I have. She tells on herself. You ever have a kid like, you know what, 12 years of Catholic school, that's what did it. She's guilty constantly. She'll call me on the phone when she messes up. She's like, Dad, I just want you to know I was out 5 minutes past curfew. I would have never known. She didn't even have a curfew.
Do you know that Lenny Schmidt has a gas-powered computer?
Rotary dial.
Hang on, I gotta plug in my 9-volt batteries.
There he
I
is.
said you look like Steve Seagram with that hat on and those
That's
glasses.
why I love the hat, dude. Thank you. I bought this hat in Key West, and I was like, I gotta get this hat, but now I look like Steve. I knew
You
immediately.
gotta start doing some painting.
Yeah, right.
All right, our guest is a guy I know from Chicago, and we are more than just coworkers. We are, I would maybe even say friends, but we'll have to see whether or not he agrees. He's now living in LA. This guy and I, we've performed together, stand up together. We performed improv and sketch together. You've seen him in movies like Joe Dirt, The Ugly Truth. You've seen him on Castle and True Blood, ER. And a bunch of other stuff that if you have a TV, you've probably just seen this guy somewhere. It's just maybe even like wandering behind the set, just looking for the craft services table.
Right.
But this guy, I was on his podcast. I love him. Please welcome to the show, Lenny Schmidt.
Yeah.
It'd be funny if I said
me.
the wrong name after all that. Please welcome
It'd be
Lenny
great.
Schmidt.
Give it up for Larry Smith. That's
Larry
Lenny,
Smith
Lenny
is,
Schmidt. What's
all right,
up,
well,
gentlemen?
I
Lenny
love
Schmidt.
your special. I got to see it, and what I love most is you wore a brown shirt and brown pants, like the Chicago guy you are, and
Oh, right.
it was great. You look like Tony Soprano almost, where you you have like a fashion sense that kicks ass.
I've gotten several comments. It's funny when you put up a special on YouTube. I've been watching all the comments. You know, I read them all, and every once in a while you get trollers and people that make bad comments. And I've been called Tony Soprano let himself go is what I've gotten.
Let himself go.
And I'm like, I think I'm in better shape than Tony Soprano
I
was
think
in.
Tony
Actually,
Soprano had let himself go.
yeah, it
Like there
was.
is
If
no.
anything, I nailed it. Yeah, right.
You don't have to
Exactly.
imagine it. That was just how his character was.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's great. Isn't that funny how, and and everyone who are haters and trolls, like not one of them has ever done anything in their life. It's never like accomplished comedians that are like, you know what, I'm going to weigh in on Lenny's look.
You know what they do? They troll. That's what they've accomplished. That's their whole life is just sitting around and trolling. And the longer, you know what I mean? It's like they're looking for you to interact. And I don't, it's funny, it's like those things don't even faze me. Like I don't even get upset. I even like, what are you talking about? Because I put up tons of content online and
Yeah.
I get a lot of comments and I'll respond to positive. I'll go, hey, thanks or whatever. And I try to interact. But if you're going to troll me and be like, well, this joke sucks. I'm like, I don't care. It doesn't even faze me. I'm like, all right, whatever. And I'll leave it up there too. I don't delete it. I go, I could care less what you think. But they
Well,
just,
you could tell you've been in the business for quite a while because you've got thick skin.
yeah. Yeah.
That's the key, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the key. You can't think that anything that these people say is. And the problem is typically what they say, it has an element of truth to it. That if you have any insecurity at all, you can latch onto the small element of truth, where they might say, like you might be struggling with your weight and someone says something about your weight, and then you're like, oh, you son of a bitch, he's right.
Right. Right.
Or like I might be struggling with my hair loss, and someone might notice that and say something
Yeah.
about it, and I'm like, he's right. Oh my
Well,
God, it's obvious.
it's everyone knows.
Everyone
But
knows now.
but
I
when you
gotta I
start
gotta buy a hat in Florida.
when you're yeah, so no one sees. I have a big bald spot that I'm not going to show you guys, man. But yeah, you people make I laugh at those comments so much. Like you're right. I've been doing this 36 years now.
Has it been that
Where
long?
yeah, and I've
Wow,
had people
three
come up.
dozen years.
I've had people come up to me after a show and go, "I didn't, you're not my thing." I'm like, "All right, then why are we talking? Why would you talk to me about that
Isn't that
then?"
funny? We always joke about that 99 people like what you do, or even like maybe 94. Like let's be more realistic. And it's always those six people that I'm searching, hunting down after the show.
Right.
Like, what's wrong?
It's
What did I do wrong?
You could be killing. I always joke about that. You could be killing in front of a room full of people, and you see one guy not laughing, and it drives you crazy,
Crazy.
like insane. There's a guy named Scotty K. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a comic, but he was doing a gig on the Carnival Miracle once, and in that room, that's the front theater in the lower deck, and it's very dark room, but there's one light in the back, and one guy under the light didn't laugh at any of his jokes, and it drove him crazy. And he's like. So and he'll call him out, and at some point he's like, "Sir, I'm sorry, sir."
Right.
And the whole
Yeah.
show he's going, "Are you not even that one? Nothing?" And he's killing. By the way, he's killing the rest of the room.
Mhm.
There's just one guy. He's like,
And that's the guy they light up. That's the guy they torch.
he happens to be sitting under the
Right.
one light in the room, and it's drove
That's
him.
funny.
After the show, I go, "Good set." He goes, "That guy drove me crazy." I'm
Well,
like,
and let me
"Yeah."
ask you about that. You mentioned the Miracle, which is I know is the Carnival Cruise Line Miracle. I've worked that ship as you have, and t talk about doing the ships and versus doing the clubs, what you like better, how you incorporate both of those. Because to me that's the life is if you can do maybe one or two ships a month and then the
Right.
rest of the month do clubs, then you can work out new material and all that stuff on the ships and incorporate that at the clubs. But how do you work those two?
Well, the best way to most I do mostly ships now. And like most of what I do is ships. I do way less clubs than I do. Like I do some LA stuff. I got Vegas coming up, I got Dallas, but then for the most part, I'm on a ship all the time. And the best way to look at it really is ships is a giant corporate gig, man.
Yeah.
You just got to look at it like it is a complete corporate gig. So the key to ships is I've always said you need to have an hour of clean material no matter where you are to be successful on ships.
Yeah.
You can get work on ships, and there's a lot of lines that bring guys in or other acts in, and they go up there and they do the show, but they don't have enough clean material to work, and eventually they can't stick around long enough. Again,
Yeah.
because they can't bring them back. You have to have the clean material. Though
Well, I
there's
remember in those ships, you would have to have three 20-minute sets that were completely different from each other so that you could do different time periods on
right.
the different days.
Well, every ship works a little. Every line has their own structure. Like I work for
Okay.
4 lines, and Carnival's the one that has you do the 5 30-minute shows. 3 of them have to be different.
Yeah.
That's their rule. And then other shows are like I do the theater. I do 2 different 45-minute shows. The hardest one is Princess, I think. Their main format, you've got to do 2 clean 45s. You have to have
Indeed.
2 clean 45s, and
That's
that's
a
the
lot of
hardest.
time.
It is a lot of time. It's an hour and a half of clean stuff, and they're clean
It's,
stuff.
it's hard to keep track of what you did and didn't do in the first set versus the second set. So you probably have to really get that down.
Well, you know what? You kind of build it into this show and that show. You know, like I have one family show that I focus on a lot of stuff about my kids in Generation Z and the younger generation, and the other one is about mostly my brothers, my family growing up and stuff like that.
Right.
And the way I do my shows is I basically rotate everything around. To me, it's all about opening and closing. I got 5 or 6 different openers and 4 or 5 different closers.
Hmm.
And then what I'll do is I'll do whatever one. I'll think about the night. Like a lot of it has to do with port I'm in too, or where I'm at. Like if we're in Cozumel, these people are going to be drunk, so I'm going to do this opener this night, and then I'll do this closer that night, and then in the middle I can talk about whatever I want to talk about, and that's where I focus on my kids, my mom, a lot of stuff about the ship and the cruise itself, or I'll talk about I do a lot of talk about social media and how we're losing control of it. You know what I mean? Just different aspects of how that affects our life from my point of view and then my daughter's point of view. And then honestly, I just read the crowd in between the opening and the closing. And I know how long the closers are. So I go, with this tonight, I'm this closer, or I'll get into the show. If it gets away from me, I'll go, okay, I can't do this closer tonight. It's not going to work. I won't be able to hold their attention. I'm going to do this closer. And this is 6 minutes long. So I know that I got to get to 7 minutes left in the show. And then I plug the crew, I plug the CDs, I plug whatever. And then I open hard, close hard. That's my theory from day one is like, open. And then in the middle, I can do whatever I want to do. And then I work the room a lot. So then it just depends where the crowd takes me.
Yeah, I noticed you do a lot of crowd work, and there's good and bad about that, according to the, the thoughts that are roving around the industry now. The bad thoughts are that it teaches the crowd to talk to the comedian, and the good thoughts are that it doesn't burn your material when you share it online. So what are your thoughts about it?
Well, for it's more importantly than the good thought or the bad thought, it's a reality. So you've got to
Mhm.
adjust to the way the society is accepting stand up. You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
When I started putting some clips up on social media, I didn't want to do crowd stuff, or I didn't want to do I didn't want to do I didn't want to do crossover. I want to do material. But you put a
Yeah.
lot of material online, you start to burn it, and people see it. As far as the crowd goes,
Wait, pause for a second. When that happens, like, is somebody who's out there working the road right now, like, what does that mean when you burn your material? Does that mean that the crowd is yelling your punchline out at you? Does it mean that they're tired of it and they don't want to hear it?
occasionally it means it's people know what the joke is and where it's going. And actually, comics worry sometimes too much about that because
Okay.
people go to see that joke. Like people go.
Yeah,
I've had people
like
come to a show and go, dude, I was hoping you would do that bit because I saw
yeah,
you do it
like you
online.
want to hear your favorite band's hit
Yeah,
song.
it's like Born to Run. You're like, yeah, want
Right.
to
You
see.
play it, Bruce.
Come on, man. Why didn't you do Born to Run? And I've had people ask me before, why didn't you do this one bit? Why you didn't do that one
Yeah,
bit? And I go, well, I don't do that bit anymore, or oh, I didn't get to it, or whatever.
right.
There's
Dude, I've got
bits.
2 hours worth of material I'm gonna do, and you saw 30 of it.
Yeah, and that's the thing is sometimes you forget too. If you're doing clubs, you go like you've been doing it a long time, you forget bits.
Yeah.
There's bits I'm like, oh damn, I forgot about that. That's a really good bit.
That's a good
I should
bit.
bring that back. Yeah, right. You know
Right.
what I mean? And sometimes you just do. And the only way that happens is and a guy's fall into a rut where they don't keep writing. You got to I turn over 30, 40 minutes of stuff a year. You got to keep writing.
Yeah,
And
talk
so
about that for a minute. We have a lot of newer comics that watch our or listen to our podcast, and the whole thing we're trying to be able to do is to sit down in front of our computer and write during the times that we're not on stage, so
right.
that we have something that when we go on stage, we can present it to a crowd and say, okay, well, here's an idea I have. How does this work as a stand-up comedy piece? So how do you go about with that process?
What I do is I'll come up with an idea. I'll do it one of two ways. One, I'll just come up with an idea, something that's funny, and I'll tell the story on stage. But it always starts with the idea and then the stage. And I'll go, I'm going to talk about like mansplaining. So I'll go on stage and I'll just start talking about it. I'll talk about it as long as I record every show. I record every single show. And then when I'm done, I listen to it and I go, okay, oh, this is good. This is good. I should do this and that. And then I'll write it out long form. You know what I mean? And I'll start to cross out things that don't belong there. And then I'll start to come up with ideas that do go in there.
Wait, hang
And
on,
I'll
Lenny.
add.
Chris, mansplaining is when someone explains it's sort of a feminine character exactly what's going on, and
Okay. Can you
it,
elaborate further on that?
it's a
Yeah.
little annoying. That's why people don't like it, and it's a little condescending, and people can't stand it when you do it to them. Sorry about that, Lenny. I had
No,
to.
that's fine.
Lenny,
It was
do you
very well played.
whiteboard your stuff, or how do you organize you're going back to you have your middle and you have your opener and closer. Like, do you have like cards and you whiteboard and like diagram, or how do your brain work with organization?
Who he's going to show us.
Nice.
Looks like
I
he's.
don't do whiteboard. I just bought some new ones. No, I do notebooks, and normally I do outlines. So I can show you a couple right here. First of all, this is a great example right here. This is a long form outline. Okay. That's like a whole bunch of ideas I have that I'm going to do, and I'll write it out in a longer form. And then for every show, I do a short, which is a minier version of it.
And just for the listeners who can't see what you're holding up, it looks like he
I'm trying to coordinate my hat.
hired a tiny duck and put ink on its little feet, and he said, "Pat her away, little man, pat her
That's
away."
exactly what it looks like. It's like a whiteboard, but I carry it with me. I do
Yeah.
I'll sit down and go, here, what do I want to do tonight?
It looks
And
like it's in code though, doesn't it? It looks like there's a code to it. Like
there is the newer a bit is the longer it is. Now, like the mansplaining bit, there is a mansplaining bit. It's in the special, and it originally was all beaded out along. And now, if I just write mansplaining, I go, okay, that's the mansplaining bit. It's about 4.5 minutes long.
nice.
What
Yeah,
the
it's
longer.
funny how that goes where when you find another comedian's set list and
I
you
love
and you
that,
hey, tell us about bacon strips.
dude. What's this?
What's
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 the show?
what's a Jello foot?
Baby powder?
Baby powder. What? Give me that.
Well, you blew the punchline. Thanks for saying baby powder, because that's the whole point.
Dude, you should know better than that. Stop letting them peek inside my kimono.
I hate you.
Well, that's pretty cool. So, when you're going around, like say the ship, or you're going around your neighborhood, assuming you get out of that wonderful apartment of yours, do you call for bits, for material, for potential things, stories you can tell on stage? How do you go about finding your newest bits?
I do two different things, man. One is a lot, really, honestly, a ton of it comes from my kids, man. My kids are in their 20s, and a lot of it is how my kids and I have a great relationship with my daughters. So we joke about stuff all the time, and they explain what's like Gen Z to me and the way they act and things they say. All these things are being explained to me, like the ick. Like I know what the ick was, and they're like, "Oh my god, Dad, you don't know what the ick is?" I go, "Yeah, what's
Well, what is the ick? I
the
don't know
ick is
the
the ick is
damn it.
it's
I
a
need
phrase.
two daughters in their 20s.
See, I'm telling you, they saved me, man. Because now if I do a show on a cruise ship and there's kids in their 20s,
Now I know what the
I
ick
go,
is.
this show gives me the ick. And then I get a huge laugh. And I'm like, it's because of my daughters.
So
the
that
ick,
means that, let me get this by context. It means that that whatever you're talking about is basically icky by nature.
yeah, it's like a gross feeling, yeah.
And I don't like it.
Or even it could be a person. That guy gives me the ick. And
The ick. I love
yeah,
it.
I know, isn't it great? So
They
now
will
it's
always come up with new stuff that will make
right,
us
but
feel
that's
stupid.
it's so cool to stay relevant. That's how I stay
Yeah.
relevant, man. A
Well,
ton
you
of my
have to
stuff.
if you're in front of kids too. You're performing
Yeah.
in front of all ages.
Dude, I'm 60 years old. I'm making a room full of 25-year-olds laugh. That's, you know what I mean? That's,
Oh
you
my
gotta,
God, that gives me the ick right there.
it doesn't, it gives me the ick.
It gives me
Yeah.
the stick, as in stick up my ass. I took
Yeah.
10 years off, and now I come back, and I'm like, all these audiences are different. I'm like, when did you people get so picky? When did
Yeah.
you get so like willing to cancel us,
Yeah.
and why do you
Well,
keep wanting to talk to us? Shut the fuck up.
yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll getting back to the crowd work thing. Like one of the things I wanted to mention is there's a fine line between, the problem is that everybody's showing up and expecting crowd work now. You know, audiences are showing up and loaded with things to say. And there's two different ways to handle. There's crowd work, which is kind of just talking with the crowd. And then there's people that are heckling. You can tell when you talk to someone if they're being aggressive and trying to heckle or roast. I'm not a big roast fan. You know what I mean? I like to roast people. When I do a show, I really try to look at it's a room full, it's a party, and we're having fun, and I'm kind of the center of attention. And I'm just joking with us. And I'm like, I don't know if I explained this to you in my podcast, and you might appreciate this. When I do my crowd work, I look at my show like a big solo herald. And the long form herald is, the herald is, of course, from improv. It's a long form where you take a suggestion and you build on it. And it's basically broken down to 3 parts of 3s, kind of what it is.
Yeah.
Long story short, I'll talk to people in the crowd. By the end of the show, I'll try to bring all of them into a joke or a piece at the end of the show,
Great.
and somehow call them back before the show's over. And then so you're creating comedy on the spot while you're there. You know what I mean?
That's exactly what Paula Poundstone does. She does it brilliantly. It's a really brave thing to try to do.
Right.
Right.
It's ballsy. Alan Stevens,
you have to be very
Alan Stevenson
clever.
used to do it too. Yeah, same thing. Where by
Who is
the end
it?
of the Alan Stevens, he was one of the guys that toured with Sam Kinison. But
Oh,
he works
gotcha.
the room, and those guys, like I was a big Carl LeBeau fan. Carl LeBeau is another guy that could
Yeah.
work the room and bring it together. He's the guy that really taught me more about working a room than anyone. Because when I originally started playing the crowd, it was much more angry and aggressive, like Kinison, like attacking. But that was his style. Carl did it in a
Right.
way where it was fun for everyone in the room, and he could almost kind of make fun of you with you, where it was jokeable and workable and likable. And then
I like
I learned more
that.
from that
Yeah.
than anything. Yeah. And it's fun for everyone. That way you're not annoying a table. And every once in a while you get someone in the room that's an ass, that wants to be the king. And usually the whole room hates him. It's an easy win for you as a comic. It's not, if we're all
Right.
having fun and there's one ass, and can I say asshole? Can I say asshole? There's one, and the whole room's having fun, and the guy ruins it and nobody wants to, believe it or not, people don't want to see that. People want to have a good time. And the guy's going to be a dick and mess it up for everyone. Then nobody wants the guy there in the room. And instead, it's even easier to turn the room around on him. And then he's the butt of half my jokes. You know what I mean? Then the rest of the night, I go, we're all having, this is a lot of fun. I'm sorry, not that guy. That guy hates us.
Right.
And then I go back.
Yeah.
And now he gets madder, which it's not my intent. Well, it is, but he gets madder.
Yeah,
and the
but
crowd's having a great time.
The more mad he gets, the funnier it is for every single other person
Oh,
in
it's
that
the
room.
best. Yeah, and when they leave, it's the greatest. The crowd
Yeah.
cheers. You know what I mean?
Right.
And everyone
And
in the
then you
room
get
gets
him a round of applause at the end too, and then he feels good because he's like, well, and those are
yeah,
the people that they have the bitter grumpy face, but they're enjoying themselves too.
yeah. And we'll do. They even hate that more. We're like, let's give it up for Grumpy. Come on, guys.
Shut up.
Come on.
Fuck
You
you.
don't want to, but it's part of the reason we're here is because Grumpy made this happen. It's great. It's just there's just a fun way to do it without throwing yourself out a grenade. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can really make them part of the show in a way
Yeah.
that almost feels uncomfortable for them because you've made them in the opposite of what they expect it to be.
Right. And one of the things, the biggest thing for me is that makes the show fun for me, man.
Right.
I do a lot of
Yes.
shows in a week, dude. So if I'm doing the same, and I'm fine with set up punch guys. I love to watch them. They're brilliant. I'm amazed they remember jokes. I know guys that tell like one-liners. I don't know
Right.
how you remember 500 jokes in a 30-minute show.
Like Ronnie
I don't know.
Bullard's like that. Ronnie Bullard is
Yeah.
he's
He's great. Or
brilliant.
Fraser Smith. You know Fraser
Yeah,
Smith from
yeah.
LA? His jokes are like 15 seconds long. I love the brilliance
Tom
of being
Cotter,
able
Tom Cotter, same way.
yeah. Yeah, but I love the brilliance of being able to do that, but I can't
Yeah.
write a short joke, first of all, for the life of me. I can't write a joke less than 45 seconds. There's very few jokes I have that don't take a while to get there.
You can't make any point without at least 45 seconds, Lenny. That's
I know.
that's
It
your
takes me
gift.
a while. It's my gift and my curse, Mike, all in one. All in one.
We call you the adjective man.
The
So
last night I was sleepy, tired, walky, tired, making fun.
hey, Roger, easy, Roger. So you and I have known each other for how long now? Probably like 25 of those 30 years you've been doing comedy.
Easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were living in Chicago at the same time.
Yeah.
When we did that, one of the greatest, the Q Club gig. We talked about that last time. I loved that gig.
Yeah, we did. That was a gig that I produced with the Ectomorph boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. And
The riff.
we call it the riff, yeah. And we would get up and we would have suggestions from the crowd, and then the next week we would follow those suggestions and do material based on those suggestions, which was
Yeah.
a cool writing experiment to see. And it was like a big well, you like improv and stand up both, and I do too. And so I think both of our acts reflect that, where you do a lot of act outs, you do a lot of cut twos and cut forward twos and
Yeah.
contrasts that come alive. So I like that. What was talk about your first time on stage? How long, like 30 years ago, but back when everything was in black and white, what was it like to do your first set? Was there electricity back then? What like
There was electricity. We did it by campfire. It was one-liners back then because then the predators would come when they would see you.
yeah, go quick, get it done quick.
You have to tell a joke, and if you died there, you really died. Hey, how are you?
That comic died for real. Yeah,
yeah,
rest his
seriously,
soul.
dude. Yeah. Anyway, we need someone to open tomorrow. I don't know if I'm gonna do that.
I'll do it. How much does it pay? Who books it?
The first gig I did was at the Sherman Oaks Improv, which is no longer around. And ironically, it was right across in a hotel right across the street from a school where my daughters eventually went to when they were born.
That's hilarious.
But, yeah, it's a weird irony thing or fate. I killed my first time on stage. It was 3 minutes long, 3.5, maybe 4, and I destroyed. Wow. I'm like, this is great. This is the best.
This is easy. What are they complaining about? This is simple.
I really thought it was going to be a cakewalk, and then for the next 2 weeks, I struggled. It was every show was
never replicate that first one where you were innocent and you didn't know any better.
You didn't know, and you don't know what you're doing anyway. It worked, and you're like, well, it won't work, and I didn't tape it. You know what I mean? I just did it. And I was real cocky the second time, and it was not. I ate it hard the second time, like really hard, and I just couldn't get it back. And I was one of those guys. I always had stage presence before jokes. You know what I mean? Yeah. I could always be funny on stage just because of who I was. I was a funny guy. I wasn't a great.
Yeah, you're a real Chicago personality. You're what we think of when we think of Chicago, which is who's outspoken, who loves sports, who can talk about all of it.
Yeah,
strong, who will bust your balls.
Powerful.
Right? All you got to do is say one thing to you, and good luck.
Yeah, and every Chicago guy kind of has that quick like Caponera. Caponera has it. Pardo has
Caponera. Yeah, everybody's got that. Yeah.
Yeah, they got that quick, like, oh, we'll do your thing. That's okay. Good. All right, fair enough. All right, yeah. No, you're right. No, fuck me. Fuck me.
Yeah. It's the bears. That sketch, it really does capture the Chicago spirit when the guys that talk like this.
Yeah.
I lived in
Chicago.
There's
a couple of guys on the Bear, man. There's a couple of guys on the Bear that crush it. and
Okay.
not the main cast, but the side guys. There's a guy that Odenkirk played. Do you ever watch The Bear?
I've only seen clips on YouTube Reels.
Odenkirk played a character on there. I didn't know it was him. He's in makeup and stuff. I found out
Oh,
afterwards it was him, but he nails the Chicago. He's the guy. Yeah, got the beef sandwich down the street,
the
and he
beef
just crushes
sandwich.
it. Yeah, and I'm going, that
That's
guy
that whole
nails.
Midwest twang.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like that nasally effing, you know.
Right. And like, how do you, when you work on your own character on stage, like how much do you allow that to seep through? Do you let, like at first was it tougher to be natural like that? Your Chicago aura.
No, a lot of that actually, the heavy Chicago aura thing kind of came out of me when I moved to California the first time in the '80s. And then when I went back to Chicago, it kind of came back a little bit. So I still got it, but I don't, it's not over the top as it used to be. And I've always embraced who I am on stage just
Yeah.
because that's what I had first. You know what I mean? I had that before I had jokes, I was about me on stage. And I would work the crowd and joke around and do, but I was always more of a character on stage. And my character on stage is really kind of an over amplification of who I am off stage, and which is
That's
what I
what I
always
like about it.
wanted to
Yeah,
be.
you reflect the real truth about who you are, and
Right.
you have a lot of vulnerability about what a the so-called flawed character you are. You heighten
Yeah, yeah.
those your struggles with the world, with the life, with you're
Yeah.
a
And when we
divorcee, a single dad of two daughters, and it's funny.
Yeah, it's well, most like we were talking about the writing earlier. Like I handle that in two different ways where I take the stories, the things that really happen with me and the girls, and the things I go through, and those are easy to tell. And then I'll grab like every album or new special, I'll grab 3 or 4 subjects that are important to me, and I'll write about them for as much as I can and talk about them on stage. And they're the more serious I get on stage. Like this last one, I talked about mansplaining. I talked about AI technology, how it affects the kids, or how kids are how social media and now the new stuff coming out. I'm just working on it now, but now it's about how the pandemic and social media combined has affected our youth and where
Yeah,
the development of these early 20-year-old kids. It's a rough time for these kids growing up.
yeah. That stole 2 years out of their life.
Right. So I'll try to talk about that as much as I possibly can and make it funny and then put it in between the other the funny the jokes, you know what I mean, the bits. Like I
Right.
try to go, you know what I mean? I'll talk about things that annoy me, but not in a way, I'm not a wordsmith. You know what I mean? I'm not a
Yeah.
real smart writer, comic, political guy. I don't do any of that. All my stuff revolves around humans and human interaction and how we deal with life.
Now,
So
how did you get to that place where you didn't try to be the wordsmith anymore? Because I'm sure that, like every comic in the beginning, you were trying every aspect or every avenue to get to how can I be funny to strangers? So, how did you figure out finally that this is your way to do it?
I think it started early on because when I started on stage, I was never really a great joke writer either. It was always about my character. I initially started as a character, so the material kind of came into what I do. Do you know what I
Ah,
mean? And then I became a better writer. And once I began to understand how I could who I was on stage, I knew what it was right to talk about. Like early on, I did bits about Rob Lowe and pop culture and Madonna, and none of that stuff affects me. You know what I mean? It
right.
doesn't. Most of my stuff now I deal with jokes that affect me directly or
Yeah.
affect you directly in the room. And that's why the parent thing comes into play so well. There's so many parents out there, and all of us are raising kids in their 20s, and we're looking at them, and there's a whole new level of these kids today, which you don't want to beat to death because every generation does that. Every generation goes, these kids today. But these kids today, it's a whole different world for these. I mean, it's a total different, they don't know how to. A lot of interacting as humans is something that we're losing as an art that we're losing in general.
Yeah.
Too many people just interact on social media and stuff, and so I find a way to talk about how that affects us, and the younger generation coming in under these kids are doing. There's a pendulum effect, I believe in. Whatever is really serious or whatever is important swings back the other way
Yeah.
at some point. There's a whole generation of young kids that are they're not on social media. There's a whole wave of kids who are like, I don't want to, I'm not on a smartphone, I'm not on Twitter, I'm not on
Really?
TikTok. Yeah. They think it's stupid. Think it's dumb that everybody knows who you are all the time, where you're doing. I mean, eventually they're gonna rebel about everybody rebels against what happened before them and the generation before them.
Right.
And it's a whole
Interesting.
part of it. And it makes sense. Like I would never, as a kid, I never understood why it was important that everybody knew who you were and what you had for lunch. I'm like, why is that big a deal?
Not just what you had for lunch, but how it looked. Snap a picture, man.
Yeah, I do. Dude, my daughter's we'll get dinner, and like, don't eat yet. I'm like, and they'll set the table up, they'll be taking pictures, and I'll be, all right, let me know when I'm looking at a steak going, I really want to eat this steak.
Here's a picture of our cold steak. Here's a
Yeah.
picture of cold lasagna.
Here's my dad starving to death.
Yeah, here's my grumpy dad starving to death.
Drooling.
You son of a, put it out, serve it. What talk about your like a big success for yourself. Like what when you like something that happened that you feel pretty proud of, like something where you realized that you had made it, or that like really clicked, that this is for you.
I don't want to. All right, here's this. This to me, this was really
Hey,
important.
whisper to me and I'll say it so it doesn't feel like
Okay.
you're bragging.
I'm not going to brag. My ship shows go really, really well. I mean, I do really well
Killing?
on the ships. Yeah, I don't have.
You can kill on those ships. You've got a captive audience, and if you
Yeah.
are giving them what they like, and then you're a hero, right? You're
Yeah.
a celebrity.
Yeah, and if you're good, and if you can do a show too, too many comics that go on to ships, and this is what a big difference between, I think, ships and clubs, and something I did even in clubs. Guys don't have a show. Guys don't have an opener and a closer and a show. They go up and they do 40 minutes of comedy and they say goodnight. And that's great if that works for you. But if you have an overall show, it has a bigger impact on a stage on a cruise ship, because
Yeah.
you have a button close and you're like, good night. I mean, my closers are closers for a reason,
Right.
This is like this is how I close. Good night. And then the crowd, whatever, you get a big ovation or whatever it is. So some guys just do comedy for 30 or 40 minutes, but I have an opener and a closer, so I have a show. I think there's a big difference between the two. And what was the initial this moment? This was a moment that was really good to me. I was playing Zanies in Chicago. This wasn't that long ago. My cousin came out and the room was packed. It was all they were all under 30. I mean, the room was just packed with people under 30. This is maybe 2-3 years ago. I was 57. I went up and I crushed. And that was a big moment to me, because
Right.
guys are having a hard
Huh.
time adjusting and playing to younger crowds, but I can nail a crowd in their 20s. And your longevity in this business is going to matter if you stay relevant to everyone. You got to, whether you call it universal, whatever you want to call it. If I can go up in front of a room full of 20-year-olds and a room full of 50-year-olds and make both of them laugh equally, to me,
Right.
that's really successful. And
That's
the younger
Ibity.
generation is more important, because I never wanted to play this. I don't ever want to come with the you kids today are stupid, or I'm an old man, I don't understand. I try to go with more of I'm trying to figure it out and you guys are smarter than me. That's the angle I go with the younger
Yeah.
generation, because then they appreciate that. I'm not talking down to them like, you guys are 20, you're stupid, these phones are dumb. I don't do that. I go, I can't figure out the phone, I'm an idiot. Look at this. What does this mean? I mean? So I think that's funnier. That gives them a little bit more of a superior complex, and you're on an even playing level with them. And it doesn't make sense to talk down to an audience and expect them to laugh at you if you're being derogatory toward what their daily functions are or their daily life is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and your comedy is, I mean, comedy is basically about struggles. We're mocking the
Right.
fact that we're struggling with something, and here's how we cope with it in a funny way. And I think that when you can get past the age difference and you can just begin to tap into what are people struggling with right now, still in this modern era, and then have a little bit of the terminology of what describes it, then I think you can stay relevant. I think that's a key point there, Lenny, because I'm 58 years old and I'm trying to get back on stage now and doing improv and doing stand up, and it's hard to think like, what do these kids want to hear about? What do we want to talk about? What is it that I want to talk about to them? What do I like? And
Right.
what's my struggle right now that I can relate with them?
Well, that's just as important too as what you want to talk about to them. It's because, like, they never wanted to be in a position where I'm going on stage doing a show I don't want to do or I don't want to talk about.
Or were you
You know
trying
what
to
I mean?
cater to them where you go,
Right.
what do they want?
Yeah, but you want to cater to them on a level that you can't throw your soul away. You know what I mean? Like, that's where the ship thing, like, a lot of guys do ships and like, whatever, it's clean jokes, it's an old audience. Like, we'll find a way to make it work for you and find your voice on that in front of that audience to where you're comfortable talking about the things you want to talk about. Because if they can connect with you as a person, they'll appreciate where the humor's coming from and your point of view. They'll get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People are smarter than you think, and then they're not. You know what I mean? But they are smarter. They'll connect with you as a personal level on stage. So I think that's the angle I've always tried to take when it comes to the ship thing.
Well, speaking of clean material, have you done one of those dry bar specials yet? Because you sound like you're geared perfectly for one of those.
Yeah, I did it. I shot a dry bar in
Oh,
over COVID. But most of my like I'm with I work with 800 pound gorilla, and they've handled three of my last four releases, and it's mostly stuff on Sirius and YouTube and stuff like that. I lean toward them and work more with them. That's where I originally started doing the clean stuff, because my clean stuff was playing on Sirius,
Oh,
which
nice.
is which is where you start to make decent money. You know what I mean? I got decent streaming money coming from
You can
Sirius.
make like 40, 50 cents a month,
Yeah, 40, 50 cents is great, dude. Every
right?
once somebody drops off a handful of quarters. I'm like, thank you, sir. You know,
Thank you.
collect them
Well,
up.
we appreciate the 9 minutes of your set we listened to.
Yeah, but
Yes.
the dry bar is called, I think it's called Schmidt Happens. It's out there. You can go to dry bar.
Schmidt happens. I
Yeah,
love it.
you can go out there and check. But I literally taped that in during right in the middle of the right around the lockdown time. It was February or something of 2021. It was right after toward the end of all the lockdowns and stuff.
And how did that help you or hurt you, or like did having a dry bar special give you anything in terms of the industry? Like, were you able to get better gigs? Were you able to use that as a
It's you know what
credit?
yeah, you can use it as a credit and everybody knows what it is. Also, people can access your stuff online.
Ah,
This is why I try to put a lot of stuff. And I've had like Zanies is a great example. Last time I was at Zanies, I walked out to get it was between shows. Like I did the first show, and you walked out. There's that hot dog joint two doors down. I always go down there
right.
to get a couple hot dogs. So I walked down there, and there's a line of people to get in for late show, and they're all, "Hey, Lenny, Lenny." I'm like, "Oh, these people know me. How do these people know who I am?" You know, it's just I'm not that guy yet. But they all now people go, they check, they watch your stuff online before they come in to watch to the club. You know,
It's
they'll
because you were
know
wearing your hot dog outfit, the brown shirt and the brown pants. That's how they knew you. Like,
it's the
that's
guy.
Lenny.
Yeah. But then people will watch your stuff. So the more stuff you have online, the better, because people get to see it. So if people hear dry bar, they know what dry bar is. They go, I know exactly what that is. And then they
Right.
can sit down, they can watch it. You know what I mean? So anytime they can access your stuff online, it's good. I'm amazed I work with a lot of guys that don't have a lot of stuff online. And I'm kind of amazed how you get away with that now. You know?
Yeah. How are people supposed to know whether or not they want to come out and see you? The old days, they would just trust the comedy club, but nowadays they
Right.
don't really, anymore. They want to know who they're going to see.
Plus, from a booking standpoint, I've seen guys do this too. Like, this is the thing I do. If I work with a guy in a ship and I don't know who he is, I check his socials really quick. And if I don't see some stand-up clips, I'm like, all right, why don't you have stand-up clips? You know
Like,
what I
what are
mean?
yeah,
And any booker should be able to go online and find a lot of your content.
right.
And if you're getting booked without content, that to me is a guy that's not putting enough work professionally into his act. I'm just maybe, that's just me, and that's just my point of view. I think you should be that way. Any booker could Google me and find a ton of my stuff online. Full specials, old content, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it's necessary. If you want to be taken seriously as a professional comedian, you need to have a good at least a good audition set that's up online that people
Yeah.
can Google and find fairly quickly.
Yeah, I got EPKs I can send you. I got clean EPKs, and then you go to my website, you can actually you can go look at two of my EPKs, or just a couple of clips, or my
Yeah.
acting reel. That's all on there. And you go to everything's on the website. You just go there, and they should be able to find it or know who you are. It's just, I think, from a branding standpoint, I think that's important more so today.
And your website is lennyschmidt.com.
Yeah, LennySchmidt.com. And the podcast I do, which is what's the name of your podcast? What's the name of this podcast we're
This
doing?
pod is called the Funny Muscle Podcast.
This is so much smarter name than mine. Mine is Total Schmidt Show, which is great name, but it doesn't really say what it does. It's just, and I
True.
basically, but it's
And yours is about nuclear physics, I believe, right?
it is.
Isn't
I
that,
talk about. I show
you
you how to
break
build a
down the
bomb and how to
fission
tear it
and-
apart before the
Yeah.
FBI comes over.
Good for you. Good for you.
Thanks.
You have a time limit on how long your podcast can last until the government
Yeah.
intervenes.
No, but I kind of do similar to what we're doing now. I love to talk. I basically bring my pod stuff with me, tour, and then interview guys when I'm on ships, different artists, different comics, different singers. And I do like every episode goes up every week. It's mostly comics. This week was this week was Lucas Bone I had on.
Oh, cool.
And we talked, he really got into the real professional side of stand-up and a lot of the stuff we were talking about, marketing and branding yourself. And I love talking behind the scenes about how you build your show or your act. We talk about how guys are on stage, what's going through their head. They're like, when they do this joke, they go, I got to hold this joke because if I do it, it'll step on the bit I'm doing 2 nights from now, and I'm going to need that show for this. You know what I mean? I like
Right.
talking about the nuts and bolts of shows and stand-up and how you build your career, your brand, and your show in real time. Stuff happens on stage where you got to react. How do you handle that and get out of it without burning or stepping on a bit that you need for the later show and keeping it clean, a clean show. So I love that stuff. So we're doing episode 100 on my show, goes up next week.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, and that's a lot of big picture stuff. That's it's funny when you're a new comedian, you're looking to just make people laugh. Can I make strangers laugh
Right.
on demand? And then slowly you're beginning to say, well, now I got to put that into a 5-minute audition set. Then you're saying I got to get that 3 times done so I can have a 15-minute opening set. But I really
Right.
need 20 to 30 because those nights that it's rough. Then
Right.
there's a middle set, then a headlining set. But then you get to your place where you're really having to think in terms of marketing and longevity.
Yeah. And when, like I mentioned a little, when you're doing these shows and if you're doing 5 shows, if I have to do 3 different shows, you got to set the shows up correctly so that you're not stepping on the later show. Like I'll do a bit a lot of times in a show and I'll go, oh, I just lost 3 callbacks because now I need those for the next show. So then I'll go, all right, well, then let's do those callbacks here so I don't lose them. And I'll just move this bit to tomorrow night's show. So in my head, I'm thinking of that. And I go, well, now I'll have to do this bit later and save this one for that. Or more times than not, I'll just catch myself before I start a bit and I go, I'm not doing that because it's 15 minutes of material I could keep. And I like to do certain things in a certain order. You know what I mean? Like I do a bit about, I call it the listen bit, which is where I talk to my daughters about when they were little and we talked about oral sex, which sounds graphic, but it's not. And the whole bit is about how you have to talk to your children about everything. You have to communicate about everything. And they were little kids and we talked about this stuff. But the bit leads into 2 other bits that I like to do them in a row. And it works really well in the middle of this one show. So I start this one joke or bit. I go, I can't do that because I just lost good 12 minutes of stuff that I wanted to do in the later show.
Yeah, it's funny how you can cherry pick bits for your convenience, but then it just screws you up later,
Right.
for when you're
Yeah,
trying
but
to do the bigger picture.
Yeah, but you know what? In reality, it just screws you up in your own head because
Right.
the crowd doesn't know.
They don't know.
The crowd doesn't know that he didn't do the listen bit the right way. They're
Yeah,
not
and
thinking of that.
exactly.
Sometimes you're putting more pressure on yourself than you are.
Yeah, but
So-
you're trying to give them a great show. That's
I
the
know.
key. You're trying to not repeat so that they can feel like they got their money's worth. So
Right.
I get that. But yeah, they're not noticing that shit at all. That's all
Right.
mechanical stuff.
And a lot of times, like Norwegian is one of the tougher ones to do, I think, because you do 45-minute shows and you do 7 shows in a week on there. And you can repeat stuff and move stuff around, but you generally try not to. You know what I mean? Because some people come and see all the shows. So at the very least, it won't repeat the adult shows, right? But by the 7th show, I'm doing whatever's left, and I'm doing whatever new stuff I'm working on, and those always tend to be the best shows because like going into it, I'm like, well, I wish I wouldn't have done this, and I could have saved this, and I could have saved that. But the last show, it's so much fun because that way I get to create more stuff on the spot, and I'm doing some material I haven't done in a while. And again, the crowd has such a good time. It's after the show, I'm like, I was really in my head going into that show, worrying about it more than I had to.
Isn't it funny when you can, like a bit works where you work with the crowd for whatever reason, and it takes up 5 to 10 minutes, and all of a sudden all your problems are solved because
right. Now you're
now
like, I got plenty of time.
Right, I got that transfer that 10 minutes to the last show. I'm done.
Yeah. No, I've done that before. I've gotten to a point and go, good. Now I can save. Now tomorrow night I could do 2 closers.
Right.
How great is that? And if you do 2 closers back to back, now you're crushing out the door.
Now you're crushing for the last 10 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
What would you say if you had any advice for these newer comedians? Like, something that you could help them. Like, not that anyone wants to cut in line, but we want to sort of get faster, quicker, better, So what's the way to get that done? Any suggestions?
Yeah, when I was young, the advice I got was keep writing,
Yeah.
always write, which I think at the time I thought that was stupid, but then I look back and I go, that was brilliant, and it is great advice, but I don't think it's the best advice. I think it's good advice. I think the best advice is get on stage as much as possible.
Yeah.
Perform as much as possible because we're living in a day and age where people are doing things online. They're doing TikToks, they're doing all this social media stuff, and they're getting likes and follows and all this stuff. I think it's more important to get on stage and work a live room now than ever. I think it's important to do it and do it as much as possible and learn how to work in front of a group of live people, because so many comics are losing that aspect because they take what they do on TikTok, try to transform it onto stage, and they don't comprehend well when the audience doesn't perceive it or it doesn't go well. Sometimes things don't go well, or you read a crowd wrong, and then you got to fix it
Yeah.
while you're there on stage. And you don't learn that unless you get up in front of an audience as much as possible. And I think that's the best advice, is to get on stage, bring the stuff you write up there and work. Go up there sometimes with no ideas and work. Go up there with a combination of both. Just get on stage and talk in front of a group of people and learn how to interact with them and learn how to deliver and be funny in front of them. And then the writing will fall into place with that. And I think it all coincides.
That's great advice. I know I've written the books about doing comedy and about the methodology of writing the jokes, but the big thing I always say is until you do them on stage in front of people, you have
Right.
no clue whether or not it's funny. It's just a methodology to help you try to set yourself up to be funny in front of people. But the whole key is get in front of people to be funny.
Right.
And if you can only get 5 minutes a week, then that's what you get. But you're doing 5 to 10 hours a week, which is or more. It sounds like even more. You're doing 20 hours a week, so you're going to get exponentially better just through that.
Yeah, right. Plus, and once you do your act over and over again, and then I sneak in my new stuff later. And if you want to work the crowd, great. But just performing in front of the people is such a big deal. And I know it's like I'll get in there's a million times where I've written something, I go, this is going to be great, and then I do it, and then it's not, and I'm like, damn it, why? I spent all day working on this, and then you just got to go back and fix this. But that's part
But
of
then you get that one joke that works, and you get an applause break on a new joke, and you're like
a home run.
Oh shit!
Sometimes stuff hits harder than I think it would. I'll tell a joke and it'll crush, and I go, wow, I didn't think that was that good, but I'll take it. That's good.
It gets more of a recognition laugh than you realize we were counting on.
Yeah,
the audience goes, "Oh yeah, I've done that too," or "Oh yeah,
that helps. That helps
pain."
big time. Yeah. When they're in the same boat.
What's your comedy persona, Lenny? How do you describe your persona in 3 words? What's your brand of comedy?
I'm your buddy.
Oh,
I hear this a lot. I'm like, you remind me of my uncle. You remind me of my brother. You remind me of this. You know what? I'm a single dad with 2 kids, just trying to survive. I'm just a regular guy.
I like that. I'm your buddy. Because that lens you can apply to anything. Like if Lenny buys a dog, I'm your buddy. So he and the dog are best friends, and Lenny will do a bend over backwards for that beast.
Yeah. And when I'm on stage, if you're in the audience, I'm your buddy. I'm not going to attack you. I'm going to joke with you. Are you having fun? Are you good?
Right.
No. What wrong? What went wrong?
You're on the cruise just like them. You're their buddy on the cruise. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So I've always had that. That's the one thing that I've done from get-go, was I was always kind of like everybody's friend. Once I got I was so heavily influenced by Kinnison earlier. Once I got a lot of that attacking the audience thing out of me, it was a lot easier. It was a lot simpler, because then we're all there to have fun.
Once I stopped calling the audience a bunch of dick bags.
Dude, I used to have really, Mike, I used to have really long hair, and I was bigger. And there was the guy at the Riddles, Ken Shepanik, told me one day, he's like, dude, you got to lay off the crowd. He goes, you're a big dude and you're loud and you're scaring the shit out of the audience. And I'm
Some
like,
of them were hiding in the bathroom until you're off stage.
I know. I mean, I listen to old stuff. I'm like, oh my God, why would I say that to someone in the crowd? That's so shitty.
But you were finding your way, man. That's the thing. And I would rather hear someone find their way on the bad side of the line than someone who never approaches that line.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I always say it took me 7 years to really figure out who I was on stage.
Yeah. Does it really? 7 years?
It took me 7, and it's every year up, and then I thought I had it figured out. After 4, I go, I think I got it. Then after 5, I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I got it. Then after 6, I'm like, I got it nailed now. But ever since, I can look back at 7 and go, yeah, at 7, I knew who I was. And then that evolved as time went by, because I had kids. And then, so I was the same guy, but I was just a parent. You know what I mean? So, but
that changes you. That having kids as a comedian changes your take on that. It fundamentally changes it.
It does. And one of the most powerful things that it always hits me a lot, having daughters, as a guy that grew up with 4 brothers, I began to look at the world from a young woman's eyes, and it made me look at things differently. You know what I mean? the way
Yeah.
I acted, the way people acted, the
I can
things I
imagine
said.
how guilty you feel now.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff I look at. Oh God, that was shitty. Oh God, oh God. I mean,
Oh.
there's a lot. My daughters explain it to me. Things happen to them. I go, oh shit, I know exactly what we're talking about.
I did that, done
Not in a
that,
good
did
way.
that.
Not in a good
Whoops.
way. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
karma
So
coming back to kick you in the ass. It's
yeah,
just
yeah,
with
yeah. But I
your daughters who you love.
right, exactly.
Yeah, we always the same question of you gave us advice on like get on stage, but we're looking for more advice on like if you're trying to write more material for young comics. So the question is like if you have an hour to write comedy and work on your comedy a day as a writer, like what's the equivalent of doing 100 push-ups but for your comedy chest? What would you tell a young comic in to help them write new material? What drills, exercises, what do you do to come up with new material?
Well, there's a couple of things you can do. I try not to. I used to put a time thing on it, but now I do this. I'll sit down. I'll do stream writing. That means I'll grab a note like the notebook I showed you, open it up, and I'll just start writing. I'll write it. I'll just come up with an idea and write nonstop. Just keep writing 2 whole pages and then stop, and then go back and look at the 2 whole pages and see if there's something there that I can work with more. And then I'll turn the page. And then I'll start to write out the idea. Like let's say in the middle of the 2 pages, I come up with an idea about a gas station being on fire, but they have a Coca-Cola machine. And then I'll just write down whatever it is. I'll hone in on something and just keep writing. But then the exercise part of it is to keep writing and to keep writing stuff down. That gets your brain going. And then
Yeah.
And it gives you
writing,
permission to write anything. You're
right.
not critical.
And 99% of it is shit. I got
Right.
tons of notebooks full of shit that I'm like, I'll go back and read it. Or what I do is I have voice notes, right? Keep voice notes on here. And I'll put a voice note ideas and I'll sit down and listen to the voice notes I made most recently. And I'll write out the ones I think that are funny. I know this, the longer the voice note is, the drunker I am when I've left that voice note. And that's usually not funny at all. I'll listen to like 6 minutes ago. That was fun. I don't know what.
The reason why sports
Yeah.
is not
Yeah, there's people yelling, no, just the thing with yeah, 3 tequilas, just 3. It's good.
Just 3.
And it's just babbling. But
but if you can get one bit out of that, so what?
if you can, but you never know, because sometimes you hear a word and you go, sometimes the joke is the joke. The
Yeah.
joke is the longer the voice note is, the drunker. I've said that on stage and gotten a laugh every single time because I'll think of something and pretend like that's a great idea. A lot of times the crowd will say something. They'll go, "You're right. Yours is funnier than mine. Let me write that down." In fact, I'll do it in the thing and I'll explain to the crowd. I'd have these voice notes and then I'll get a laugh from that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Hey,
I try
invite
to
them in
be,
on the process.
yeah. Well, I try to be as present as possible at all times, especially when you're on stage because
Yeah.
you're in the moment of what's going on. But the stream writing helps with it, keeps your brain going. And then if you can write it. I used to do a 30-minute thing, write for 30 minutes. But then I found the time thing was too brutal for me. You know what I mean? Then I'm looking at the thing. Oh, that's too long. So I just made it pages. So I would do a page or two, and then I would just go from there. And then after that, I do a lot of pacing and talking aloud. I'll do that. I'll come up with an idea and I'll start to just literally, I'll talk to myself, do my act in my room, the thing, and the girls will be like, "Dad, are you working on your material?" "Yes." "Can you leave me alone, please? I'm working on my thing." And then I'll hash it out in my head and voice it out and write down the notes and the beats and everything. And then I'll just try to put it into an outline. And then I'll take it to a mic or I'll go on stage and I'll do that bit or I'll sneak it in somewhere and try that. So that's, as far as writing goes, I'll do that. And like I said, I'll focus on something. It's always something I want to talk about. I don't go, I should do something about politics. I should do something about this. I'll write about something that bothers me. Like the mansplaining thing was really a big deal to me. I wrote that out. Or the AI thing I thought was great, where
Right.
I don't think, AI, I don't think people are going to, it's not going to take over the world. I think we're going to lose control of it because that's what we do is we create things and lose control of them. Like social media is a great example. It used to be when I used to, the bit I did out there was a kid. I go, now when I was a kid, if your whole life is lived on social media, this is the first generation of kids that are being raised on phones. Now, if you're in your early 20s, these kids were raised on phones. When I was a kid, if you got beat up after school, you just went home for the summer and shook it off. Like
Right.
now you got to relive that beating every night on TikTok.
From
And you can't move. You can't,
like 6 different angles.
right. And yeah, right. And you can't, when I was a kid, you could also move to another town and reinvent yourself. That's gone. So now
Right.
if you can move to Taiwan and be in a McDonald's
Oh,
somewhere.
you ass kick boy.
Okay, you booger boy. Everybody. And you're just,
Booger boy.
yeah. So that was the joke I did, and that's the reality. It's this whole, that's what it was tough for these kids. I'm glad the phones weren't around when I was a kid.
Oh my God.
But anyway,
right?
that's the stuff that's why I wanted to talk about. That's where the bit came from.
Yeah.
Was that? But I
Right.
basically start with this free form writing, and then I'll do walking and pacing and looking and noting and walking and pacing and looking and noting and walking, and then it'll be 5, 6 pages of crap. And by the time that's done, it might be just a joke or 2 jokes.
Interesting.
Do
That's good.
you put your phone away so you don't get distracted when you're doing the stream writing?
Yeah, stream running, you got to if you're gonna do stream running, you gotta be on the stream constantly. So I turn off the phone, right? Just don't look at the phone, and we'll keep writing till the 2 pages are filled.
Wait a
And
minute, you
then
can turn off the phone? There's a button?
there is a button. There's
I
a
think
button.
mine doesn't have that.
But I'll do the pacing. The pacing thing and the working thing kind of works for me because I'm pretty sure I have ADHD. Like I think most comics I know have it, but I could be wrong. But because my attention
You have an
moves
extra
around,
D in there. That's pretty
that's
pretty
messed up.
fucked up.
Yeah, so I'll do this.
For
If you do
douchebag.
this,
Attention deficit douchebag disorder.
that's me. But if you do the stream running, you got to just keep going because that's what gets your brain into a creative flow. And sometimes it takes more than 2 pages. Sometimes sometimes you get on a thread. And you're like, I'm going to keep writing. I'm going to keep writing. And you write till you're bored, but you do at least 2 pages.
Good.
And if you get stuck, like writer's block, you just like write, like I've heard people just say like red, white, blue, red, white, blue, red, and then
Well, but I won't repeat stuff. You got to keep moving forward. So I won't go red, white, blue, red, white, blue, red. I'll go red, white, blue is the color of the flag, which is hanging on my bedroom right now. In my bedroom, also, I've got a cup, and on the cup there's a cup of soda, and it could be not funny at all, but you keep moving forward. You keep moving the story forward. You don't go back and repeat what you already wrote. You just keep moving forward in some direction because then that keeps your brain moving forward. Otherwise, you just keep going back and forth. That's the problem with writer's block. You're going.
Yeah, you're trying to get out of your head.
Yeah. So if you keep writing, keep the story moving forward, whatever it is, it could be stupid. This cup is on my table. It's been sitting here since last night. Anna brought it in. It had soup in it, but then I ate the soup. It had carrots. I made the soup myself when I cut it down. This time I didn't peel the carrot. Whatever it is, you just keep writing and keep moving. That way it keeps your brain operating and moving.
And then all of a sudden, like from that, you might deduct a bit about homemade soup. You might have a bit about feeding your daughter. You might have a bit about doing dishes.
Yeah. Or suddenly I made a salad out of the carrot peels, which is weird. No one eats that. Who orders carrot peel? I'll take a carrot peel salad. And then got that at the deli down the street. And I mean, whatever it is pushing you.
You're on a goat diet.
Yeah, right. See, there you're down, but that's the whole point.
Right.
It keeps your mind going in a direction, and eventually, once you'll get into a groove, and you can either go back and look at what you wrote over those 2 pages, or it might inspire you to keep moving into a story you've started. And go, oh shit! Well, why don't I do the thing about Modesto, the thing when I was there at the deli and the guy, and suddenly now you're thinking about a story. And a lot of my stuff comes from stories. I start with a story and then embellish it and then add to it and move stuff around and that's kind of how that's where my stuff starts with, is like a story.
Yeah.
But the key is to keep moving forward with the stream and don't repeat what you wrote. I think repeating just puts you right back in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
And when you tell a story, a lot of newer comedians make the mistake of thinking that you tell a story that has a payoff at the end, and then that's how you do a funny story.
Yeah.
Talk about getting jokes, laughs along the way.
Well, that's funny because I used to think every story has to have an ending, but I used to think every story needed a big punch at the end. You know what I mean? Like a big thing. And there's a funny way you just make fun of. That's the whole point of the outline and writing stuff out. Is as you write stuff out, you think of they're beats. There's like this is a beat, this is a beat, this is a beat, and if you get a laugh throughout the story, it still makes it. It's a strong, and you find stuff more as you create it. There's a bit on the new special now that I do about when I ate something in Jamaica that didn't agree with me. And it's kind of based on a true story. And I ended up, and the end of the bit isn't a strong punch, but it's a button on the whole bit. But each line going into it, there's 3 or 4 lines I found that were really funny. Just as I told the story, they got huge laughs, like 4 or 5 huge laughs in the middle of the story. And people associate with it because everyone's had some sort of food poisoning. And it's a great story that's not graphic and gross. You know what I mean? But it's about like a stomach thing. I go, I'm not going to get graphic, but here's what happened. And and I tell this whole story. And as long as you're getting, the key is that's where being present helps, is as you're telling the story, stay present within the story, because you'll get laughs as you get there, and then let the laughs come out and let them lay there, man. Let them be there. And then when the laughs are done, go right back into the next line and keep going, and then get the next laugh and let it lay there. And they'll see the whole story. And then when you get to the end, they'll appreciate the story. It doesn't have to have a big crescendo end,
Yeah, and sometimes it does just by the natural organic nature of the story because there's a climax to the action of the story. But some of those stories don't have that, but because you gave them laughs along the way, it was a fair trade of time.
Right. Or if you can button it out or close it out by calling back something from the beginning of the
Yeah,
story. You know
exactly.
what I mean? And
Boom.
that's a great, and now it's gone full circle, and
Right.
that works for the audience because now it's a full
Yeah.
piece.
Especially something from the beginning, something that sort of
Uh-huh.
initiated the story, but you have like a
Yep.
new understanding of that thing.
And that's even the best if you can do it without them
Yeah, of
seeing it coming,
course.
which
Yeah.
is it becomes harder as you write when you do it because you see it coming. As a
Yeah.
writer, you start to understand more, but you don't realize the audience doesn't see it coming.
Yeah, this is the first time they're hearing any of this.
Right. Right. And sometimes you're like, one of the biggest mistakes I make is I talk too fast on stage because I want to get to the end because I don't want them to figure out what it is. But you don't realize they won't. You just got to
No.
trust your instincts and take your time. And it almost, and if you do slow down, like it was a Seinfeld that says you can't tell a joke slow enough. And if you do slow it down and you do let the jokes air or the laughs breathe, and you do stay present in the story, when you do button the story, it usually gets an applause break and people usually appreciate the whole piece
Right.
because that way you're in the moment telling the story. You're not in a hurry to finish the story.
Well, thank you so much for your time. But maybe as one last question I have for you is like talk about the state of comedy in general. Like what do you've been through decades and decades of changes to the state of the business of comedy. What do you think of where it's at now, and do you see a big future for it? And should we feel hopeful or should we feel scared?
I think we should feel really hopeful, man. There was a time when I was worried about this. I was worried that live performing was going to disappear, that we weren't going to embrace live performing enough because there's a huge generation of people that do the TikTok, social media, Instagram, and they base all they do on that. And even the clubs fell victim of booking people that had a lot of TikTok or Instagram followers, but these people didn't know how to work a live
Yeah.
audience. But I think we've worked our way through that. And there's a lot of young comics. I love Taylor Tomlinson, man. I love
Yeah.
her point of view and their storytelling. She's brilliant. She's great. There's a generation of comics that are coming out with those stories that appreciate being on stage and telling the jokes and working an audience.
Yeah.
And I think that's hopeful. And that coincides with the crowd work thing, sort of, because I think the crowd work thing got overplayed a little bit, but then kind of disappeared as well, to where you can even audiences are annoyed if people are talking too much. You know, people want to enjoy the show. People want to go to a live audience. That's why I say it's important to get up in front of people and perform because audiences still want to see live shows. There's nothing better than live comedy.
Yeah, the one that's going well. Yeah.
Yeah, they love it. So, but I think people are starting to, for one, the younger generation of comics are figuring out, they're talking in a voice, the newer voice that people are starting to understand and appreciate.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of encouragement moving forward. Also, some of the older guys, I'll even say like me, I know older comics that are trying to stay current and they're not beating this. People, there's a difference between uh, uh, being socially acceptable and cancel culture and all this stuff and moving forward and learning to be a better writer.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to be a better writer. I mean, comedy changes. Back in the 70s, you could throw around the N word. And then, I mean, look at the movies and things. Entertainment has changed over time. So now comedy changes, and you just need to evolve with comedy as you can. There's a way to do it, and there's a way to do it and stay relevant. And a lot of people are finding those ways. And I think that's really encouraging. And I think live entertainment and live comedy is coming back for people. And I think they'll dig that. The other thing I wanted to is like, I was never a big roast fan. Like I know they do battle roasts and there's a lot of thing. And I love Kill Tony and I love Tony Hinchcliffe. I love all this stuff. I think it's funny, but I'm not a big fan of doing a roast or being involved in a roast. And I think some crowds like that and some don't. Crowds are going to gravitate toward what they enjoy to see live. And that's the most important thing to me about comedy is there's so many different kinds out there. There's people that like roasts and they'll go see a roast. There are guys that liked Kinnison. They saw Kinnison. People that like Rena Rudner. Comedy to me is the most beautiful art form because there's so many different ways to do it and everybody has their own thing they like. And I think that'll never go away. And I think that we're getting a resurgence of great comedy and moving forward. And it's really encouraging because I like the voice that a lot of younger comics are using now and the changes that the older comics are making to evolve with the business. Yeah,
Well,
but
listen.
I think the future of comedy is great, bro.
Yeah.
I think it always takes a hit, and I think everybody readjusts, and they go, okay, this is what we're going to do. Because I see a lot of different comics out there that are doing some great work, and it's great to watch.
Did you just call me bro? It's funny. My kid, my daughter, she's 15, and she calls her friends who are girls dude. And then she called
Oh,
me dude the other day, and she was like, "Dude, no, we're not going to do that." I was like, "Did you just call your dad dude?" And she was like,
well,
"What's wrong with that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I guess I got to evolve." Lenny says to
yeah.
evolve,
My youngest calls me
bro.
bro all the time. She sent
I
me a
know,
text. Hey,
right?
bro, what are you doing? I go, nothing, bro. What are you doing?
But you gotta move with it, you know. I'm so antiquated with my stuff, you know. I still say cool. I'm still Fonzie, you
Yeah,
know.
what did I say the other day? I think I
Hey,
said rad. And
oh no,
Anna just looked at me like, what?
there's
Did you
nothing
just say
more ick
rad?
than that, Dad.
I go, yeah, I said rad. I'm sorry. I guess that's not, isn't that what you
You're
kids are
you're
doing
you're
these
bringing us
days?
into the ick.
See, full circle, full circle,
We're
Yes,
ladies and
nice
back.
gentlemen.
callback.
Brilliant work, Michael.
All
Brilliant,
right, we
brilliant.
love it. Well, Lenny, thank you for your time and for your wonderful wisdom and for your hat.
Thanks.
I feel
Yeah,
bad that you'll have maybe a picture of your hat on the on the
I was glad.
advertisement.
I was going to wear a baseball hat, but I thought I'd class it up for you guys.
Yeah, I thought I'd class it up because it's the Funny Muscle podcast. I almost said Funny Bone.
All right, man.
All right, brother. Hey, thanks, man.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
Thanks, guys.
always. Yeah,
All right.
Yes,
talk
thanks.
soon.
See ya.
It's not. She's up to. She's strict too. The roles are reversed in my house. It's all messed up. I can't handle it. You know, she's almost too good. She doesn't drink, doesn't stay out late, doesn't do anything. She's hard. I came home the other night, 3 o'clock in the morning. I walk in the door, right? Lights are out. I walk in, close the door. Lights kick on. Where have you been? I'm like, out. I'm 56. I can do whatever I want. She's like, is that liquor I smell? I go, yes, it is liquor you smell. Daddy drinks grown-up juice. She's like, well, not in my house. I go, wait, what? Now I have a curfew. They don't even know I'm here. I left. I snuck out. There's a watermelon in my bag with 2 masks on right now.
That was great.
Yeah, that went well, right?
Solid advice. Really like the streaming, writing streaming. Keep moving forward. Yeah, writer's block, but keep moving forward. Was a great advice. I scribbled that down.
Yeah, when
I
you
like how
have
he
that
writes.
automatic writing going on, you can sometimes pop into the funny zone of your brain
Flows
as opposed
like
to
flow
the
state. Yeah,
uh, yeah, you
yeah.
unlock the right side of your brain.
I like this. Don't if 30-minute writing doesn't work for you, just do pages. Do a page number.
Yeah.
He does 2 pages. Sit down, stream write pages, 2 pages every night. Keep moving forward.
Yeah,
I like both those pieces of advice.
and the key to that advice is do what works for you. Figure out what other people do and then try to do a version of that that works for you because it might not work exactly the same way.
I thought it was very interesting to hear is like you have to have new material on a cruise ship because you can't repeat stuff the next day. So like you don't want to burn material, so you need to anticipate what tomorrow's show looks like. It's funny the idea of like doing a callback, but you realize the callback was the show from last night, and you're like, shit. Like I've done that before in lectures, like make a callback joke in the 12 p.m. lecture that was from the 10 a.m. lecture,
Right.
and
You're
it's
like,
like, oh,
oh,
that's not working.
why aren't they laughing at the callback? Oh, because it was not them that heard it in the first place. Funny, right?
And you can't fake being funny. I mean, you got to put material up. So it's
Yeah.
a, worthwhile signal in economics.
And then that gives the booker and the ability to see whether or not your type of humor would work for their crowds. Because every city is different. Every club in every city is different.